All right, we're live. Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in for this Moonbuilders session. This is actually the third workshop that we have in place, and we started the series to provide like a space for developers or people that are building on Moonbeam to present their projects. What are they doing? What are they bringing to the ecosystem? And today we have brought the Covalent team. They're going to talk about their amazing project and their unified API solution. Representing Covalent, we have Ganesh. He's a CEO and one of the co-founders of the projects. And just as this very small intro for the people who don't know Covalent and what are they doing, they basically index blockchains, right? They have like an exact copy of replica of the blockchains in a database, and they provide a unified API to query information. And it is really great because it's more or less like network agnostic, and it's like super simple. Just basically, if you want to query something from Ethereum, you will use like the Ethereum chain ID, and you want to query something from Moonbase Alpha, it's just basically changing the chain ID. I tested it out. It's super simple and super straightforward. So I'm truly honored to have Ganesh with us today. And yeah, Ganesh, take it away.
Thanks, Alberto, for that kind intro. The pleasure and the honor is all mine, and Moonbeam for giving us this platform. So I'm just going to start with a quick intro to Covalent, why we started the project, our product vision, and then jump to a quick demo. And then we actually have another surprising and exciting bullet point in this presentation, which wasn't really in the scope, but I think it's also relevant to this audience. And then open up the floor to Q&A. So I'm just going to get started. I think Catherine here and the support staff is going to look at the questions and then bring up those Q&A questions at the end. So please feel free to put your questions here, and then we'll get them answered towards the end. So Covalent, I'm one of the founders. We've been around for a while. We've been around for 3.5 years, and we started building this product because we found this gap in the market that blockchains are cool and all, but for it to really get enterprise adoption, it needs to speak to existing investments. And these investments can be in the talent, because these enterprises are not going to retrain their people. Existing processes, it's very difficult to change a process, a business process. And technology investments. You always have a database or like an Oracle database or a Cobalt server in your back room that's been chugging along for decades. Why try to fix something that's not broken? So that's really the initial idea behind Covalent. We built this initial thing about putting like a SQL layer on the blockchain, and built that at a hackathon. Ended up winning that hackathon and started a company to commercialize it. And so we've been just coding, slinging code for the last 3 years, and then last summer things really took off for us. Suddenly DeFi picked up, and suddenly the value of Covalent became very apparent to the market, because blockchains have so much data that's under the hood that is extremely difficult to get out. In fact, we're able to capture pieces of data that's not even visible on Etherscan, and we provide a beautiful unified API to do that. So what the core product does is we have an API. It's a simple REST API, and it lets you pull out balances and positions and historical granular transaction activity for any contract on any underlying supported blockchain. So that's really what the idea is. So the word covalent comes from covalent bonds in chemistry. It's one of the more popular bonds besides like hydrogen bonds and ionic bonds. So covalent bonds, so the analogy here is we're binding the decentralized future with a centralized kind of approach. So that's really what we've been doing. For the first couple of years, the project was a standard centralized product. There's nothing really crazy about the architecture. That's purely to de-risk the project and get product market fit. And once we found product market fit, once we started onboarding a lot of these customers, then we realized that decentralization plays a critical role. And then what we've been doing for the past year is building a decentralized version of Covalent, which is a drop-in replacement. So existing customers, so we have like hundreds and hundreds of customers, are not going to see any disruption from the decentralized network. It's just going to be magically faster and magically cheaper. So that's really what's going on. The network itself launched last week, so it's up and running now. Yeah, so that's basically a high-level intro to Covalent. So now I'm just going to jump directly into a product demo. So all of the information that I'm sharing today is all public. So definitely you can look at a recording. I'll also call out the websites and the URLs so you can follow along on your screen. So now I'm just going to share my screen. So this is the Covalent website. So our tagline is one unified API, 1 billion possibilities. And what this means is that we provide the raw materials and the ingredients for developers to build very interesting experiences. The analogy here is we give you a can of tomato sauce and some pasta. Whether you make lasagna or something else is completely up to the developer. And I would say about 70% of our use cases come fall into an existing bucket, mostly on the NFT side, DEXs, investor tools, wallets, all of those use cases. And the other maybe 30%, they're just a long tail of use cases that we don't even understand in some cases. And in some cases, it's so novel that it's crazy to see that these guys rely on Covalent for that use case. So I'll give you some examples. Prism.xyz, check them out. They're a really cool project. They're building a social trading application, so all of their data is powered by Covalent. If you look at DAOmaker, some of their data is powered by Covalent, so they do really interesting investor wallet analytics, just lots and lots of use cases. So we support about a dozen blockchains, and as Alberto alluded to earlier, it's literally changing one character. You change the chain ID from Ethereum to Moonbeam to Avalanche to Polygon, and everything just works as is. We mask all of the nuances behind these blockchains. So that's really what's going on. You can check out a new video that we put on what exactly it is. Very proud of the tech architecture we've built. There might be questions on how exactly it works under the hood, but this is mostly on how you can use Covalent as a developer. Yeah, so this is our homepage. And then the most interesting thing here is we've set up a landing page. So if you go to covalenthq.com/docs, there is a field called supported networks. And we've actually put out a new page as of last night called Moonbeam Indexing and Querying Data API. So this is a landing page for the builders building on the Moonbeam network. And what this tells you is this tells you all the relevant information for accessing Covalent and Moonbeam. So including the chain ID. So right now, what we've indexed is the testnet. So that's the Moonbeam testnet Moonbase Alpha. The chain ID is 1287. Moonbeam Polkadot, Moonbeam Moonriver Kusama, they're not live yet. But once they're live, everything that you've built with Covalent, all you have to do is just change 1287 to 1284. It'll just magically work. And of course, a link to the block explorer, the block time and data refresh latency. This actual repo is going to be open source very soon. So we're hoping for community contributions. Some of the pieces here is already written by the community. And then a list of the supported endpoints, what it gets you, and so on and so forth. And then what they have here is an appendix. Moonbeam is still very early in its life cycle, but once it's fleshed out, this is a live document. So I'll give you an example of what's happening with the Polygon landing page. So you go here, it has a bunch of stuff here, and then it has a quick start video, which is specific to the supported blockchain. But here is an example is how the gas token works. Is it an ERC20 contract or is it not an ERC20 contract? So in the case of some blockchains, the gas token is an ERC20 contract. But in the case of Moonbeam and Ethereum, it's not a ERC20 contract. So there's no token. It's not. That's not how it works. Token mapping. So here's an example. If there's a mapper between Ethereum mainnet asset addresses to the Moonbeam asset addresses, we tell you how we do the token mapping. Sometimes this is a static list that is provided. Sometimes this is on-chain. So it really depends on the supported blockchain. And then the token prices. So sometimes these newer chains don't have enough liquidity, so it's difficult to find the prices. So we port over prices through the token mapping. And then infrastructure providers. So who provides the infrastructure? So we are very close with Anchor and ChainStack. And so we have direct links here. So this is really a live landing page, which we'll keep updated as we progress. So we have this for all the supported blockchains, but the Moonbeam is what is very, very interesting. Now, the second thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you our API docs. So this is covalenthq.com/docs/API. And what's beautiful about this docs is it talks about our product philosophy. So we believe in a no-code solution. We believe in the fastest time to value, which means one of the product values that we have is the capability to use the product from the browser. I think this is really, really important. So this is the product per se. Like there's nothing more beyond this. You can literally use this product, use Covalent from the browser. That's how simple it is. So it has a bunch of information about the URL patterns and how you make query calls and the authentication and all that stuff. It's a free API, so just definitely go to the homepage and you can sign up for a free API key. And then what is interesting here is we have two classes of endpoints. You have a Class A endpoint and a Class B endpoint. The Class A endpoints are supported across all the supported blockchains. So the examples of Class A endpoints could be get the token balances for an address. This is a list of the ERC20 contracts and your NFTs and all of that stuff. Get the historical portfolio value over time. This is a super interesting endpoint, especially for the wallet use case, where you give it a user's address and it tells you every single ERC20 contract that you have right now in fiat equivalent over the last 30 days, including the historical balances. So it tells you, you can just build this beautiful chart, and then you can also do drill down. You can pull out specific contracts that is of interest. Suppose you want to see, maybe the derivative tokens or the exchange tokens, whatever it is. Like I said, lasagna, tomatoes, a can of tomato sauce. So it's up to you how you want to build it. And get historical transactions. Now, this is a beautiful endpoint. It tells you failed transactions. It tells you the native currency only transactions, ERC20 transfers. It gets you all of this stuff. What is amazing about this endpoint is that it not only gives you the historical granular transaction information, it also joins the event logs that are emitted as part of that transaction, all within one API call. So that's pretty cool. Token transfers. This is, if you have like a DAI or a USDC, it's going to tell you every incoming and outgoing token transfer. And this is actually coming from the state. So you don't necessarily have to have the wallet address in the to and the from. If there's some random transaction somewhere that modifies your balance, this token transfer will continue to pick it up. So it's very important for a taxation use case, because you want to figure out every time, and you want to classify these transfers, whether they're buy, sell, or just regular transfers, which are non-taxable events. So that's an important endpoint. And then these kinds of endpoints like get log events by contract address. So you can put in any contract address on the Moonbeam testnet, which is what is live now, and you're able to pull out all of the log events. You don't have to write a single line of code. And then you can filter, sort, project, and aggregate that data. So here's an example where we're pulling out the Compound governance contract events. So Compound is a DeFi protocol. It's one of the top 5 DeFi protocols on Ethereum. But besides the money market product that they have, what is also interesting is that they have a governance set of contracts. And this governance contract is widely adopted across the ecosystem. So not just on Ethereum, but also other kinds of protocols. It's just a regular, ERC20 contract plus a set of contracts to manage proposals and cast your votes and so on. So here's an example of an API call where you can pull out all of the proposals. Everything is on chain. You don't have to write a single line of code. So I'm just going to quickly open up this gist and show you what it looks like.
Ganesh, can you zoom in a little bit on the website just to see it more clearly? Thanks.
So all you do is api.covalent.com/v1. One is a chain ID, which is Ethereum, and then you give it the address of the compound contract, and it's giving you all of the events completely decoded. So this was a proposal created, including all the description. So here, the description is as USDT support in a September 2019 vote, whatever it is. So everything that's on chain is just given to you. So back to this. So these are the Class A endpoints. You can get token IDs from an NFT contract. You can get log events by topic hashes. Even simple things like get token holders as of a block height. Now, this is a very unique endpoint. It doesn't really exist anywhere else on, in this ecosystem. Etherscan can show you the token holders as of the latest block, but you can't really go back and show historical token balances. So this is an example of an endpoint that's very powerful. It showcases how powerful Covalent is. Lots of use cases here. So for example, recently, these social tokens got hacked. So Friends with Benefits and Roll HQ, like a lot of the tokens got hacked. And so that was devastating because the hacker just went and dumped the tokens on the open market. So what we helped them do is we got a snapshot of that contract right before the hack, and then they created a new contract and then just copied over the balances, so they're able to just undo the damage that the hacker did and restore people's balances. So that's an example of how you can use this. Yeah, so that's basically what the Class A endpoints are. I'll give you a live demo in a bit, but let me jump to Class B endpoints. Class B endpoints are specific to the protocol that's deployed on the blockchain. So in the case of, let's say, here's an example, get SushiSwap address exchange liquidity transactions. Or let's try this, SushiSwap address exchange balances. So you give it the chain ID, you give it the address, and then it's going to give you all of the LP tokens and their prices across all of the supported blockchains. So this could be Ethereum, Phantom. I believe SushiSwap is also going to be deploying on Moonbeam. So once it's deployed, you can just put in the Moonbeam chain ID, and it'll just all automatically work. So if you're building a wallet or a portfolio or some kind of like advanced tool for SushiSwap, all of this is just available to you. Get SushiSwap network assets. Now, this is also very, very important because what's happening with the world is that everything is getting fragmented, right? So you have liquidity that's on Ethereum, liquidity on Phantom, liquidity on Moonbeam, and then you need a holistic view of all of the assets, and this is giving you all of the information across all of these supported chains. Again, no code. Yeah, so the Class B endpoints are specific to the protocols that are deployed. I believe the new Uniswap v3 is being deployed today, so we'll soon see a Uniswap v3 endpoint. Once we get over that initial bump, it's a very complicated model, what they've done there. So that's what the Class B endpoints are. And now I want to talk, why don't I just give you a quick example of how the Class A endpoint works. So let's get this, get token balances for an address. This is an extremely powerful endpoint. Let me tell you why this is again, unique in the space. There's really, to my knowledge, no other competing product that can give you this level of insight. So if you think about these contracts, the way your balances are held is that the balances are within a balances map within the ERC20 contract. And on Ethereum, there are over 200,000 ERC20 contracts. In fact, things like even the Uniswap liquidity IOU tokens are ERC20 contracts. So you can actually compose these contracts and get another ERC20 contract, right? So the composable nature makes this a combinatorial explosion of the contracts. So if you want to get a list of the balances of the ERC20 contracts, then what most guys do is they have a whitelist of the most popular contracts, and then they ping the balance of Web3 call for all of these contracts, and then figure out if you have a non-zero balance. But how many Web3 calls can you make? Maybe 100, maybe 200, before it just becomes unmanageable. So the way Covalent works is because we've indexed the entire chain, every balance, every transaction, every log event, every storage slot, everything, right? Essentially, we've deep crawled the entire blockchain. We have an index on every single ERC20 contract. So for us to check if your address has a balance, it's just a matter of going through that list, which is like super trivial on our side. So this is an endpoint that can return results within a few hundred milliseconds for any contract that is deployed on the supported blockchain. So what I've done is I've just gone to the Moonbeam block explorer, and I just pulled out this random thing. I just go to accounts, and I can pick up any account. Doesn't matter. Everything is supported. Let's pick up this. So this address here has 100,000 DEV. So let's look at this address. So going back, the address is this. What was the chain ID? Chain ID is 1287. So that's your response. So what you see here is this is the DEV contract. This is the contract address. There's no logo yet. This is the balance, and as you guys know, all of the balances aren't scaled on Ethereum or any EVM chain. So what you have to do is you have to take this number and then divide by 10 to the 18 to get that exact number. So we don't scale anything. We just give it to you as is. So it's the same standard procedure. And then once there are prices, there'll be like a quote rate and then the actual balance equivalent. We support 12 fiat currencies. So, Canadian dollars, US dollars, Japanese yen, Russian rubles, Indian rupees, Vietnamese, and then Korean wons, for example. So you can just say quote currency equals this, and everything just gets translated. Nothing else you got to do. And then the supports ERC will tell you if it's there's lots of like really novel ERCs that are supported. So just a list of the supported ERC. Not everything works exactly on the testnet because not a lot of the features are supported. But on Moonbeam, everything will have first-class support. So here's an example where you're able to get the balance, and this will work for any address. So if you want to build a wallet portfolio app, then it's really that simple. Your first call is get the list of your balances, and then what you want to do is when you tap into a balance, it should show me my historical transactions that manage that thing, or swap or trade that asset. So that's really how it should be. And then the NFTs have to be displayed differently. I think NFTs, they belong to a collection. So I think an iTunes-like experience makes more sense for NFTs, where you have a list of albums and you double-click into an album, and then you have a list of songs that fall into an album. So NFTs are going to be the same way. Your CryptoKitties, you could have multiple CryptoKitties, and so you have the CryptoKitties collection or the hash mask collection, and you double-click and you see all the contracts within. But it's really up to you. I mean, like I said, lasagna, can of tomato sauce. So that's what's going on here. So yeah, that's basically what is going on with the API. You can go try out like historical portfolio value, tells you all the historical balances, tells you the US dollar fiat value of the last 30 days. Extremely powerful endpoint. You can look at, I believe the 0x exchange, they have a product called Matcha. This endpoint is being used there. If you use Zerion, a lot of their endpoints are powered by Covalent. Yeah, it's just like, we have over 100 customers across the space, so you can just use it for any use case. But I want to go back. Sorry about.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that I think this is incredible, right? And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that all this data, it's in the blockchain, right? It exists there. The problem is that accessing it, it's not an easy task. It's like you mentioned, right? Let's say I have a wallet. I'll have to query 200,000 contracts to check the balance that an address has, just to be able to display it nicely, like to the user, right? So the idea of indexers is incredible because you're able to get all that information in less than half a second with such an easy interface and such a straightforward way that I think it's a lot of people have to realize how important this is, and how this is a huge contribution to the blockchain ecosystem, because it just makes life so much easier for developers, for people building the apps and real world stuff, right? And you know, when it's just one way of thinking about this in more like, you know, simple terms. It's like how more or less how Google indexes the World Wide Web, right? To provide a search in less than half a second, you guys are doing this exact same thing with the blockchain data to provide all this information accessible and digestible. And for me, the most incredible thing is like it's less than half a second. It's fractions of like some milliseconds, right? So I wanted to do that recap because I think this is unbelievable, right? It's amazing. And I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind, before like we jump into the next topic. Is
absolutely.
So you mentioned about Class A endpoints and Class B endpoints, right? So let's say I have a crazy idea and I want to have a specific kind of like endpoint or query that I want to do. How difficult it is to implement this in Covalent? Like adding a new Class A.
So the Class A endpoints are maintained by Covalent or by our team internally. Class B endpoints are also maintained by the Covalent team. And Class C endpoints, which is coming very soon, is the marketplace where anyone can go build their own API. So once I jump to the docs, I'll tell you how easy it is to build Class C endpoints and why it solves a different need. So when we started building these integrations, there are only a handful of protocols out there. Now the space has really exploded. There's over 500 protocols. It's very difficult to keep up. But all the data is available on Covalent. It just doesn't have a package, right? It's not packaged. There's no like endpoint that you can call out specifically. Like if I want to pull out a specific contracts events, I just go to the contract events endpoint. I can pull out all the information. It's available. But it's not packaged beautifully. There's no logo. There's no anchor point for the community to come together and talk about that endpoint, right? So that is what the Class C style endpoints are. It's a marketplace, so anyone can go contribute and these APIs, and they also get the Covalent tokens in return for their contribution based on the query volume. So that's another exciting avenue that we're going to open up. But it's like literally creating pivot tables. It's drag and drop. There's no code that you need to write.
Yeah, and that's going to unlock like a whole new like power or level of not complexity because it's not complex, but of like information, right? It's going to be truly incredible. All right, thanks a lot.
Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to our docs, and what you've seen is the supported networks, but we actually support multiple campaigns. So we are big supporters of the ecosystem. So we have two flagship campaigns that we run. One is called the 1 million wallets, and this is a wallet. It's a wallet hackathon. And so we run this with every supported blockchain. So we ran this with Polygon earlier this year. We actually just wrapped up one with Avalanche. So you can go to 1millionwallets.com. And what this comes with is like coding samples, tutorials, office hours, all kinds of things, right? So it's really brings the entire developer community together as a hackathon. And there's usually like $10,000 to $15,000 worth of prices for the well thought out hackathon project. So there's lots of like interesting stuff here. So you can just go to 1 million wallets. I'm looking forward to running this with the Moonbeam ecosystem for sure. It'll happen once the product is live. So this is like really cool. I think these are some examples like NFT dashboards, wallet transfer dashboard, taxation tools. Like you could do really whatever you want. The second flagship campaign that we do is the Dungeons and Data hackathon. And this is our data hackathon project. So our vision is to enable anyone to use data, right? So the product here for developers, you can use the product from the browser. It's really that simple. But we also want people to learn how to use pivot tables, how to crunch data, how to process CSVs and all that kind of stuff, right? So all the data munging aspects. So the Dungeons Data is like our flagship campaign to teach you that. And we usually run this with a partner protocol. So we actually just wrapped up one with Aave last month, and we talked about their Aave V2 launch and everything going on in the Aave ecosystem. So check that out. We are actually going to be announcing another D&D tomorrow with another top 5 DeFi protocol. So stay tuned for that. It's not my story to share. So stay tuned for that. And then the next 1 million wallets is also going to be announced in the next couple of weeks. So we have these hackathons always going on all the time. And then the second thing I want to show you is the Alchemist Cookbook. So we have like tutorials, how-to guides, case studies. So if you go to the how-to guides, there's an example here where you can work with NFTs, right? How do you display NFTs? How do you get their historical transaction activity? So these are more like cookbooks, right? These are recipes that tell you how to use a specific feature. So the API is a reference. This is actually how to do it. So how do you process transactions, right? This is an example. Like this is actually written by someone in our community, for example. Like it's pretty cool to see this. And then the case studies. Now these case studies are super interesting because these are actually part of course curriculum homeworks across the globe. I think there's a dozen universities that package this. So here's an example where you're able to analyze Tether's issuances by pulling on-chain data and matching this with the disclosures that Tether has done on their website. But you can match it to the dot, right? So this is like a complete, homework assignment. So we have a lot of interesting stuff here. And then we have a bunch of developer tools. So like this is the token holders endpoint. So you can put in any network that you want, and then it gets you all the token holders. And then we have like a bunch of like community tools. We also have a topic calculator. So like I mentioned, you can put any contract and any log event across any blockchain, right? So here's an example on the Ethereum mainnet. You get the events, and it tells you all the events that is emitted from this particular contract. So you literally just have to put this topic hash into the API and pull out those events, right? So this is a handy little tool for that. And then another thing that we're very proud of is we have a research desk at Covalent because we're a data company, and we have this this initiative called Alpha Alarm. So Alpha Alarm is basically one chart that we put out every day that tells a story that paints into a bigger narrative. So we have a Twitter account, Alpha Alarm. Check it out. So every day we put out a chart. So there's some very interesting stuff here. Like literally, it's just like this is studying Aave. This is something with NFTs. I think there's like there's a media section here. Oh, come on. I need to sign in to show media. Anyway, so there's lots of interesting stuff here with, there you go. Aave 1 versus Aave V2. Yeah, there's lots of interesting stuff. And what is interesting about this is we have a community program called the Alchemist. So it's our ambassador program. And we actually teach you how to do this. So the last few Alpha Alarm charts were built by people in the community, not by us, right? So this is what we're trying to encourage the community to do, like teach them data. Like look at all this stuff. Is like very, very interesting. This looks like a virus, but it's like a bubble chart. Anyway, so it's pretty cool stuff to see what's going on here. And then the third thing I want to show you is Primer. So I'll give you an example. Let's go to the Moonbeam docs. So this might get a little technical, but I'll tell you why philosophically we're different from every other project out there with an indexing solution. So the way Covalent works is the way usually most projects work, indexing solutions work, is they follow a paradigm called ETL. So they extract from a data source, they transform that data source, and then load it into a data warehouse, and then you're able to query that data warehouse using a REST API or GraphQL or something of that nature. So the graph is an example of an ETL pipeline where that transformation step is a subgraph. So you're writing that subgraph. The way Covalent works is we flip that paradigm on its head. So we extract from the blockchain and then load it directly into a data warehouse. And the transformation is done at query time. And this is one of the reasons we have lots and lots of use cases, because we don't prescribe what that transformation should do. we don't have all of the answers. So we can't write these transformations beforehand. So we let it to the developers to do the transformation at query time. So that's really what the difference is philosophically. So how this plays out in terms of technology is we can look at, for example, there is a section here. Let's look at the graph. So here, this is a beautiful documentation site. Kudos to whoever put this together. We've taken a lot of inspiration from how this, especially the governance side. I think we're going to have a governance on our knowledge base as well. But you can see here, they have a simple lottery contract with a bunch of events to player joint, lottery result, and then you create the subgraph, and then you deploy the subgraph, and then you create the schema, and then you create the mappings, and then you have all of this stuff here, and then you create the manifest, and then you deploy the subgraph, and then you write all this code here. So this is where the deployment is done, and then you do all this stuff, and then you figure out what's going on with the deployment. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff here. Anyways, what I'm saying is that once the contract is deployed, literally, you put in that contract address into the topic calculator. It shows you all of the topic hashes for these two events, player join and lottery result. And then you go and put it into the Covalent API for the topic event, and you pull out all of the events. And not just that, we have our own implementation of a query language that we are calling Primer, which is exactly the MongoDB query language. So we rebuilt it in-house. So now you can do filtering, sorting, projections, selections, aggregation, everything at query time. So when you go back to the ELT versus ETL, the EL and the T is primer. That's a transformation. So literally, you can find out the number of players who have joined aggregated daily for the last 2 months. It's one API call because the transformation is done within the API call. Lottery result, the aggregated sum of the lottery result or the winners, whatever you want, it's up to you, right? And the primer docs are also here. So if you go here, there's a beginner guide, there's an intermediate side, there's more stuff coming out. Primer is still in private beta, but there are some customers who do really, really crazy stuff here. But it's just closely modeled after the MongoDB query language. So there's millions of people out there who know how to use MongoDB. MongoDB is a better fit as a query language as opposed to SQL or something more sophisticated. So that's what I want to show about Primer. So when it comes back to these docs, we actually just got all of the Moonbeam stuff ready yesterday in preparation for this call. But we will have a Covalent section on the Moonbeam docs, and there we'll probably use the exact same example, but using Primer queries rather than thinking about the indexing side. We'll focus more on consuming the data and doing interesting things with the data, not spending your time writing indexing code, because it's a no-code solution in our case.
I can't wait for that to happen. now that Moonbase Alpha and Syntax, we can start writing the documentation and add it to our site. It's truly cool what the no-code solution looks like, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so there's 2 more agenda items. I'm going to quickly talk about a completely different topic and then open up the floor to Q&A. So the topic at hand is Moonbeam as a settlement layer. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. So one of the more exciting facets of the partnership with Moonbeam is we've picked, after a lot of due diligence, Moonbeam to be our settlement layer for the Covalent network. So what Covalent is doing is we've built a decentralized version of the network. So if you think about this, we have an extractor, and then we have a Postgres database, which is terabytes, hundreds of billions of rows. And then we have the transformation and the API and all of that stuff. Now, this whole thing is being decentralized. We're building this from the ground up to be shared with the entire ecosystem. So there's no single point of failure. So Alberto said, you should bring this up and talk about, why this is important, what this means to the community. So first, I'll talk about why decentralization, right? Decentralization can achieve lots of things, and you have to have a very clear vision on why you want to decentralize something. Decentralizing for the sake of decentralization doesn't really make any sense, because you're signing yourself up for years and years of hard work, which if you don't have to do it, why do it, right? So there has to be very clear motivation, very clear intrinsic value in trying to decentralize. So decentralization can achieve lots of things, right? It can be either you can make it like censorship resistant, you can make it permissionless, you can remove economic rent seekers, you can remove single points of failure. So these are the lots of things you can do with decentralization. And specifically for an indexing and a query solution, the primary reason we're decentralizing is removing this single point of failure. So what the challenge we have right now is that this Postgres database, which is like a giant database in the middle, the Covalent database is actually stored in North America. And if you're a dApp that is accessing this from Asia or from Europe or from South America, you have to make that round trip to that API call before you can get a response. And this adds like crucial, like hundreds of milliseconds. And if this database were to go down, the entire system is unavailable, which is not really great for a system that is unstoppable. So what we are doing is we are snapshotting this database to a private IPFS. So IPFS will become the distributed layer, and then we'll spring up these APIs at points of presence across the globe. So that's really what the structure is. And then there'll be a set of indexing nodes and a set of query nodes that is going to service feeding in data into the IPFS and retrieving data from the IPFS and answering these queries. So all of that is going to be decentralized. And for all of those mechanics, we've picked Moonbeam to be our settlement layer. Now, we've written a lot of blog posts, we've put out a lot of content. I think there's one on CoinMarketCap on why specifically we picked Moonbeam. So we've done a very thorough due diligence process. We've actually sent out questionnaires to about a dozen different blockchains, and finally it came down to Moonbeam. So definitely take a look at that to see how that's going. Lots of attractive things about Moonbeam, not just from a technology perspective, but also from a go-to-market perspective. So that's super interesting. Now, that's what's going to happen with the decentralized covalent network. So if you go to CQT scan, it's running on a private Moonbeam, and you can see that the blocks are being ingested, and then the query layer is coming out. And our vision is eventually anyone can just go to GitHub, download a Docker container, and run and become part of this ecosystem without talking to us, without paying us any money, without doing anything. Of course, it's a proof of stake network, so you have to stake some tokens to participate in the network. But I think it's like it's very compelling, and there's going to be zero disruption to the customer use case. So the entire product experience that you see today, including API docs and all that, is just going to be as is. It's just now going to be served by a decentralized network, so it'll be faster and cheaper and unstoppable, which is really our motivation from a technology and a product standpoint. So yeah, that's a few words about the decentralized covalent network. And then thanks Alberto for putting down all of those links. The CoinMarketCap is basically our due diligence process. So definitely take a look. It's the best choice for us. I'm not saying it's going to be the best for everyone else. Covalent works a little differently. Our settlement doesn't require instant settlement. We're not an exchange. So we can even settle every epoch. So it can be like a couple hours. That's fine. So definitely take a look at the CoinMarketCap article for this. So yeah, now I think we have some more time, so we can open up the floor to questions.
All right. Yeah, thanks a lot. I think you covered a lot of material, a lot of interesting stuff, and it's amazing to see the integration with Moonbase Alpha. Yeah, you mentioned it that you indexed it yesterday, right? So I guess it was pretty straightforward, and there were no hiccups or anything. So All right, so we do have 3 questions from the audiences. One of them, yeah, you can either ask questions on the chat or use the ask a question button. All right, so one of them is from Alejandro, which is an ambassador, and he's pretty active always in every presentation that we have. So is there a version of Covalent available in basically as an NPM package or anything related?
So this is like a 2-part question, right? Covalent, the network itself, the answer is no, because this is like a lot of data to be as an NPM package. But we do have a Python binding for the API. And I think it'd be fantastic to see a Node.js version of the API. We do not have one currently, but if you're interested, we have an ambassador program and we're open to contributions. In fact, if you look at the API docs, we have a section with community contributions, and it has a link to the Python API that's maintained by the community. So a Node.js version would be absolutely fantastic. Definitely reach out to us on Discord, and we'll be happy to support that initiative.
Yeah, good idea. So nice to see that asked. So yeah, another question. I think you covered it, but I'll just ask it in case you want to add something. The Covalent API will be different from the Graph API. How much is the real user? Can it be applied better? So I don't know if the question, there's a part of the question which is not clear, but I guess it's related to the difference between the Covalent API and the Graph API.
Yeah, so high level, the Covalent API is a REST API. The Graph is a GraphQL API. So there are subtle differences in how you use the 2 APIs. GraphQL requires these JSON-style inputs, and Covalent REST API, you can just paste that REST API into a browser. It's just a regular get URL. So that's the high-level difference. But how it works, the engine, how it works is completely different. I described the ETL versus ELT philosophy.
Yeah. And I think that definition, it's super clear that the way the data is transformed, it's in a different step, right? So, and that's why, it just have different applications and different ways of implementing the solution for sure. Yeah, this is related to, I think Kathy put some links on the tokenomics, but when are you releasing the tokenomics of the project? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. So the token economics are live. The unfortunate thing is we are still in that embargo period with CoinList. So we're doing a sale right now. So that particular page, it's covalenthq.com/token, is actually banned, geofenced for here in the Western world. So there are other ways to use it, but once the sale is done, it'll be open to all. But yeah, all the economics are open. Everything is publishable. It's just not accessible from America or Canada. That's a legal thing. I can't really help you with that. But yeah, you can download the white paper. Everything is in there. So everything is open.
Yeah, definitely. I was able, because I'm based in Europe, I was able to actually see the tokenomics page.
Yeah, but I can't, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're in a global world now that it's different. Yeah, so this question, are you deploying on Moonriver as well? So yeah, you can answer it, but I guess yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. That's the idea. I think we have a team that's managing the decentralized network, and we'll be just doing that again and again and again. So this is just like building a network from the ground up is extremely hard work. So the answer to that question is yes.
And just for people to know, like Moonriver is our deployment of Kusama. So Moonbeam as a network will have 2 deployments, one to Kusama that is called Moonriver, and the token there will be the River token, and then one to Moonbeam one to Polkadot, which is Moonbeam, and the token there will be Glimmer. So Ganesh mentioned that Covalent will deploy, will index both of our blockchains. And that's why, we'll have 2 chain IDs, so one for each, and you can, query information from each of them. So
there'll be 3 chain IDs: the testnet, Kusama, and Polkadot.
Yeah, totally. That's correct. Yeah, I think that there were some good questions, and I do have, because we have still, let's say, a couple of minutes. I do have a question myself, and we talked about this, but it's just for general knowledge of the people in the public is that. Chain ID is a very Ethereum-based concept, right? And it was introduced, I don't remember the number of the EIP, I think it was 155, I might be wrong. But the idea is to prevent like replay attacks. So the chain ID is included in the signature, so that a signature, like a transaction, cannot be used in two different chains, right? With Ethereum Classic and Ethereum Fork, basically. So I guess you use the chain ID to as a way of representing like a blockchain in your like indexer. But what happens when there's a blockchain that you're indexing that it doesn't have to implement this chain ID solution, because like Polkadot, the relay chain, they are not Ethereum focused or anything, so they don't have to include a chain ID kind of like in their description. So how would you query something from that?
Yeah, so yes, you're correct that chain ID those are the historical roots of why you need a chain ID. But now, the ecosystem, people are sharing ideas and adopting ideas from other ecosystems. They're not silos by any means. So what we recommend is every single chain that we index, go to chainid.network, and it's an open source tool. So I'll paste the link here in the chat. And you can just open up a PR against this repo. So I'm just pasting the link here.
Oh, you got it. Alex going to do it.
And then what you can see there is that there are chains there that are not even EVM based. I think Near Protocol is on that list. So yeah, now it's become a universal concept. So if you don't have a chain ID, then let's use that website as the consensus for the chain ID, and let it be used across the ecosystem. That way, there's no confusion. So it's not just a technical thing. Yeah, so I think a couple of projects that we've worked with, I believe Avalanche, they opened up a PR upon our recommendation, and now that's being adopted across the entire ecosystem. Yeah, so in Avalanche, not all chains are EVM-based chains, right? Only the C chain is EVM-based. The other chains are different, but they still have a chain ID.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this concept will be more adopted as we move towards this like multi-chain future, right? And for example, we do see some applications of like kind of like chain IDs, but they're not actually chain IDs. For example, in Chainbridge uses some sort of like internal chain ID to define chain IDs to be able to communicate like substrate-based chains to Ethereum-based chains when bridging each other. So I think as we move towards a future where there will be multiple, networks, not all of them will be EVM-based. The chain ID can be like a way for them to get to know each other more or less, right? So they have like a unique ID in this like, multi-blockchain world for sure. Oh, there was another question coming in the chat. Actually, two questions. Is there a link to the Python bindings? I don't know if you can find it quickly or.
Yeah, so if you go to the knowledge base, and then you go to the developer tools, sorry, not developer tools. Yes, developer tools, and then community tools. So I'm going to paste the link here. It has a link to the. You can just go there.
Yeah, good question, and thanks for sharing that link. It's useful.
Yeah. So we don't maintain this, so but we want to showcase all of the contributions to the ecosystem, so we'll be there. In fact, this repo will be open, so you can just open up a pull request against this.
Yeah, and it's clearly said on the community tools that these are not maintained by Covalent, and it's just like a way of providing some visibility for tools that are created by the community, which is always important. There's a question. I think we can wrap it up. I mean, if there's no other questions, I think we can wrap it up with this one. And it's on the chat, so it's not in the Ask a Question button. It's, would Cardano blockchain be compatible with Covalent API?
Yeah, so our vision is a unified API for all blockchains, right? So we mask out the differences between all the different blockchains. But the right way to approach indexing a new chain is to go through our governance forum. So you need to open up a proposal. So we had our first governance call on Monday, and it was exciting to see the community involvement. And someone had actually already opened up a proposal to index the Solana chain. So then, we put it up to a vote, and whether it had enough information. So it needs to, before we can vote on the proposal, it has to have a minimum clearance, minimum amount of information, the resources, who's going to do the work, is there support from the foundation itself, and so on. So definitely, please contribute to our governance proposal. And it's a decentralized network. It's what the community wants.
Definitely. Yeah, I think one thing that our projects have in common is that they have great communities for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I don't think there are any more questions. It was truly a pleasure to have you in our workshop. It's truly amazing, to see the API working on Moonbase Alpha. Yeah, thanks a lot for coming, and we hope to keep interacting and keep bringing great products to our Moonbeam ecosystem.
Absolutely, happy to be a part of the ecosystem. Very, very impressive thing that you guys are building here. So yeah, looking forward to the next show and tell.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for participating, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, night, whatever you're in the world. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks, Alberto. Take care. Bye.